As we love them and God gives us the strength to love them, that builds the relationship. And the relationship is the strong thing that the covenant supports. Contract relationships don't protect the relationship. It's all about what I can get on my own. And if this person does all the rules and all the things I like, I'll keep them around for a while. But ultimately, the contract relationship is protecting self, where the covenant relationship is protecting the couple and the family.
Welcome to the Restore Go podcast, where we discover ways to restore our relationship with God and others. Now, here are your co-hosts, biblical therapist Pete Thompson and biblical coach Lynn Thompson. Together, let's learn how to restore go.
Welcome to Restore Go. I am biblical therapist Pete Thompson.
And I'm biblical coach Lynn Thompson.
Today, let's talk about two kinds of marriages. I'll let you decide which one you're in. Let's go. So many of the couples I counsel are engaged in a contract relationship. This is a relationship where it's pretty much almost like a business.
Yeah.
It's where you agree to, make most of the money, and the wife agrees to take most of the household chores. There's a certain amount of how many hot meals are cooked. There's a certain number of times of intimacy. When kids come along, that kind of disrupts that contract relationship. And so it's based on like you would do a business. As two partners are happy with the business, that has come into marriages in the last 80 plus years. That's influenced, with the belief that we have to both be happy. If we're not happy, then we have a right to leave the relationship, because a lot of couples will say, well, doesn't God want me to be happy? And so they use
Right.
that rationale that, I'm not happy anymore. My needs aren't getting met the way I want them to. And so that's giving them the excuse to say, well, maybe I should end this relationship. And that's kind of the mindset of the contract relationship.
Yeah, I can see that. Sometimes we'll get calls. It's always kind of surprising in a way. I'll get calls from couples and they'll say, well, we've been together, or we've been married for 3 years, or even we've been married for 1 year, but we've been together for 5 or 10 years. So a lot of times you're dealing with these couples that actually started out their relationship by living together and not, actually getting married. And so I'm wondering, why is that the case? Why are we seeing a lot of couples, they live together first, and now, what does that contract look like?
Well, it's just an extended thing of the dating process that, if I'm not really happy with this person I'm with, I can just leave, and there's no paperwork, there's no anything. If any time I become unsatisfied in what I expect out of the relationship and I'm not getting it, then that's why a lot of people live together, because they say, oh, it's just easier. We don't have to go to attorneys. We don't have to do anything. We just love each other, and we stay as long as the relationship feels good to both of us.
Right.
And so then they decide, okay, it's been good for these 5 or 10 years. And then
They get married.
And something switches, because they realize that we should be different, but we're still stuck in this contract mode.
Right. Because that's what they've been practicing the whole time the relationship's been
Yes.
in existence. So do you see married couples that maybe they didn't live together before marriage, or maybe they even waited till sex, till marriage? Do you ever find those people still living in a contract relationship?
Well, that's what the culture teaches. The culture teaches that if you're not happy at any time, you can leave, and you should leave, because it's your right to leave, because, you're supposed to experience the best that there is. Mm-hmm. And also part of culture is each person is supposed to give 50% to make it whole. And so And so if one partner thinks that the other person isn't doing their fair share, then they become dissatisfied and want to renegotiate the terms of the agreement.
Yeah. You almost need a marriage broker, right?
Yes.
At that point. Yeah. So, okay. So that kind of explains a lot about the contract. So now that we know what that means, what does a covenant marriage look like? So first of all, what is a covenant?
Covenant, well, we know about covenants. They're in Scripture. There's all kinds of examples of covenants. But a covenant marriage is a binding agreement or promise. And that's a promise that we've made to God and we've made to our spouses in front of a whole church.
Right.
And so those people around us where we made the contract, those are all the witnesses, and they're encouraging us to stick with the covenant. And so the difference about a covenant, it's not based on perceived happiness or perceived of getting everything you want. It's an agreement that you made with God through to death do us part, right, that we're going to maintain this relationship because it's the most stable relationship to raise healthy kids in.
Right.
And to facilitate family and stability and those things that society values, but they don't want to work for.
Right. Well, I mean, you used to see in the olden days, right? You used to see couples saying, we're staying together for the kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes you'd even see them divorce after, the kids left. And somewhere along the line, that was kind of sold as a bad thing. But that actually was a good thing, right?
It was for the kids because at least they weren't seeing mom and dad be separated and not get to spend time with mom or dad and have all those things. Some of the most painful things is seeing the kids that are in a divorce home and the dad drops off the kids from visiting with them, and you hear the kids screaming down the street, Daddy, don't leave. And
it sounds like a movie I saw.
Yeah, yeah. It's an agony because the kid is feeling that rejection. And of course, kids internalize things that they think they're responsible for when it's really the parents.
Right, right. Well, I mean, if you look at covenants, you're right. Covenant is all through Scripture, right? Mm-hmm. We look at Noah. God said to Noah, I established my covenant with you, and all flesh shall never again be cut off by the water of the flood. Neither shall there again be a flood to destroy the earth. So here he is, he's flooded the earth. He's starting over basically with this small family, Noah's family. And he's saying, I'm making a covenant with you. I'm making a promise to never flood or judge in that capacity again. And of course, the rainbow in the sky is God's promise. It's a covenant. I know it's been hijacked, but its original meaning is a sign of God's covenant. And then in Exodus 2:24, you have the children of Israel. They're in captivity in Egypt, right? Mm-hmm. And it says, so God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he is saying, I'm going to act because of the covenant that I made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And mm-hmm. these are his children, his descendants.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stay true to the covenant. And so, we see that throughout all of the Old Testament, God is faithful to his covenant, to his people. They aren't always faithful to him.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But God, nonetheless, is faithful. Hey friends, let's be honest. It can be difficult, if not impossible, to find a Christian therapist that's true to your values. Pete Thompson knows that. As a licensed therapist, he is committed to providing godly counsel, introducing helpful tools battling everyday problems like anxiety, addictions, as well as marriage and parenting challenges. Give Pete a call to set up your next confidential appointment online or in the office. Visit PeteThompson.org. Again, that's PeteThompson.org. And so knowing what a covenant is, what does a covenant marriage actually look like? Like, how is that lived out?
Well, it's sacrificial. And based on how one person is feeling at the moment, that doesn't change the situation. And so if one person isn't feeling like, oh, all my needs aren't getting met, the couple will work together to figure out solutions and compromises. But there's a lot of sacrifice in living with a covenant. And so as a husband, as we take care of our wife and our children, even though we're not feeling like it, even though we might be frustrated with the situation, it's not turning out as we planned, but just like God, we are whole to that covenant and to take care of them even at the expense of our wishes and our dreams, because that's what God does. That's what God modeled.
And that's got to feel really safe for a woman, right? I mean, that, you may make mistakes, you might not do things perfectly, but that there's that covenant that holds you together in place. And I'm sure it's for the same for the husband. It's not this constant threat of, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to divorce you. Well, if you do this, I'm going to divorce you. You're not doing this well enough, so I'm going to leave you. I mean, even adjusting, that's very damaging.
Yes.
Because you want to hold up the fact that, no, we're together through thick and thin, and you're going to make mistakes, I'm going to make mistakes, but we're going to stay true to this covenant that we've made, and we're going to live by that.
Because otherwise you have this underlying floating anxiety in the family, because both partners are like, well, I'm worried if I do this or if I say this, and they're walking on eggshells, and eventually the kids pick that up. And so that's why the covenant and what we sacrifice to maintain the covenant with our spouse, and we take care of our children. That's the most healthy way to run a family, is based on the covenant. If we're thinking that someone can be out of here just because they said something or somebody did something,
or they found someone better.
Yeah, they want to move up,
right.
Upgrade or whatever you could call it. It's much more stable, and people thrive in that environment, and they don't thrive in contract relationships.
Very good. Very good. It kind of reminds me of the new covenant we have in Christ, right? In 2 Corinthians 3:6, it says, who also made us adequate as servants of a new covenant, not to the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. And Jesus is basically, what he did by making the covenant with his blood is he made it so that we don't lose that relationship with God. It's
based on something we do.
Right. Because that would be over, in a minute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we cannot live this checkbox life, right? Where it's like, okay, I did this and I checked this box and this box and this box, so I'm good. It's all good. Like he said, the letter of the law kills you. Mm-hmm. Nobody can live by that.
No.
None of us can. Husbands, wives, none of us can live according to what's right, what's wrong all the time. There has to be grace in there. And that's what Jesus' covenant, his new covenant, did. He brought in the grace that we needed to cover our sins, because we were unable to live by the letter of the law, just like couples cannot live by the letter of the law.
Yeah.
So you shared why covenant relationships work better in marriage. What are some other things you see why they're successful?
So the idea of living by rules, these rigid rules, doesn't work, because even in our relationship with God, he didn't win us over by the rules, by the 10 Commandments. He won us over because he loved us even when we were unlovable. And sometimes in relationships, both partners can kind of be unlovable at times. And as we love them, and God gives us the strength to love them, that builds the relationship. And the relationship is the strong thing that the covenant supports. Contract relationships don't protect the relationship. It's all about what I can get on my own. And if this person does all the rules and all the things I like, I'll keep them around for a while. But ultimately, the contract relationship is protecting self, where the covenant relationship is protecting the couple and the family. And that's why God set it up that way.
So good. So good. Yeah. I mean, I would hate to live by a checklist relationship. I mean, don't get me wrong. Checklists can be good as far as organization, right? I mean, you and I kind of have our mental list of what your responsibilities are and mine. I mean, you usually take care of outside. I usually take care of a lot of things inside. We even have, I empty the dishwasher, you load it. But there's this flexible, kind of going back and forth and taking care of each other that exists within the relationship. When I was sick and I couldn't take care of the kids, you jumped right in and did whatever needed to be done.
Yep.
When you're working all day and you're exhausted, I don't expect you to empty the dishwasher. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do that. So because of the love relationship, of the covenant relationship.
Yes.
You're flexing and you're moving. It's almost like this ebb and flow of taking care of the bigger picture, which is letting the family thrive.
Yeah. Where based on the rules, it's like, you didn't do this on Monday, you didn't do this on Wednesday, you didn't do this on Thursday. And the other person that's holding the rules is like, you're letting me down. And the covenant is, hey, I'm going to step in because you need me to step in.
So, you know what this reminds me of? Do you remember that one time, he's a friend of ours, he's a pastor in California. And I love what he did. He had a sermon where he was talking about going on your first date with your wife, right? And he said, okay, so imagine you went on a first date with this person you're interested in, and you came and you brought this list of
this long checklist,
like 20 things that you need to do in order for me to think that you're a great wife and for me to be
a good Christian woman.
Yeah, good Christian for it to be successful. And so he said, so by the time I'm read all this 20 things that she needs to do, what do you think happens in this relationship? What do you think happens at this date? And someone yelled, there wouldn't be a second one, right?
Yeah.
Because she'd be gone.
She'd leave in the middle of the date. She'd get an Uber and get out of there because this guy's crazy.
Right, exactly. But he said, but the interesting thing is that after you're married, because of your covenant relationship, your love to each other, your commitment to each other, he said, I can think that there's way more than 20 things on my list that I do for my wife. And I know there's way more than 20 things that she does regularly on my list in order for me to have, a good relationship with her and vice versa. But the difference in that is that now there's a relationship. Right now, it's not, this is what I want from you. It's like, I want to serve you and I know these are the things that make you happy.
And so because the relationship, you want to please that other person. And so you want to find out the things that they love and they appreciate because that's your way of loving them in the relationship, in the covenant marriage.
Right.
That is not there in the contract relationship because the contract relationship is just about pleasing yourself.
So good. Yeah, so true. So let's take time for a question. If you have a question for Pete or Lynn that you'd like answered on air, send your question to kidfishy@restorego.net. Again, that's kidfishy, KIDFISHY @restorego.net. So today's question is for Pete. The question is, how long should we date before getting married?
That is a very interesting question. And
that's a hot potato right there.
And get lots of responses and
we only know each other for 2 weeks and we've been married, 60 years, but those are rare.
Yeah, that's kind of that's outside the norm. Yeah, and the dating process should be a process where you're getting to know a person well enough to see if they're a good fit, if God can use that person to either complete you or use that person to help you bless them. And so the goal...
Kind of to further your ministry, right? Whatever God's called you to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so because 1 + 1 shouldn't be 2 in this case, it's 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 because God is put the perfect person, you're marrying the perfect person that will help you complete your ministry, and you're there to love on this person and take care of her.
Well, and I think it goes back to when it's how long does it take? Well, are you seeing each other once a week, once a month? Are you talking over the internet? Are you seeing each other in person and doing life together? Have you been doing life together before, where maybe you were friends or grew up in high school as buddies or something, and you know this person, you know what they're like in different circumstances? I mean, there's different scenarios, but
Yeah.
I think the people we see in our office a lot are people that did not do the investment in the time, and spent most of their time with just this idea of, let's just be romantic and whatever that means to them, instead of kind of doing the nuts and bolts of it, asking and answering the questions, right?
Well, sometimes people focus on the secondary issues, and there's a lot of secondary issues in a dating relationship rather than focus on the primary issues. And the primary issues are, how can we serve God better? How can we be a unit that God uses both of us to enhance and give him glory and enhance the world around us? And, the secondary issues are sexual intimacy. And God has a reason for why he tells us don't, do fornication, don't do premarital sex, because it's a secondary issue.
Right.
And when we're dating and that's going on, we're not focusing on the primary issues. We're not focusing on what we need to do and what we need to know about each other to see if this is a good fit. And so that's what gets neglected, because the secondary issues take the primary. And when I see couples in counseling after a couple of years of marriage, it was clear that the secondary issues were the primary focus during the dating relationship. And so what needs to happen in the dating relationship is there needs to be lots of conversations about real life stuff.
Yes.
And how each person wants to deal with the real life stuff, and what is the ability to communicate about it and be open to different ideas, and so that both of you can be united. Because parenting is the hardest thing that you'll ever have to do with the least amount of training. They give you more training how to drive a car
They do.
than parent a child. And so everything from discipline to financial issues to all sorts of things that will come up as you're married, those need to be clarified started in the dating relationship and focused on in the engagement period, so that you really know how this other person is going to respond based on what you know about each other, so that you can be a good fit.
Well, I mean, you look at people, they do more research on finding a car than they do on finding a spouse. That's the funny thing. It's like you're going to do all this work for something that's going to be very temporary. I mean, a good car you might have for 10, 20 years tops, but this person's the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So why would you not invest the time, the research in this person and find out, how are they when they get mad? What does that look like? How are they when things aren't going their way? What happens if you lose your job? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. And they need to look at the relationship, the future marriage relationship, as a covenant. And if either partner sees it as a contract, that's a problem.
Right. And we have a whole podcast on that.
Yeah.
So that we refer you back to the Covenant Contract
Yeah.
podcast. That's a good follow-up for that.
Yeah.
So alrighty. Well, thank you. Good question. Thank you for joining our Restore Go podcast today. I hope we've encouraged you in your relationship with God and others. Please hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next time. Be blessed.
Thank you for listening to the Restore Go podcast. Now, Restore Go is produced by Pete Thompson Christian Counseling. Pete is a licensed therapist who offers affordable family and individual counseling in North Texas and online throughout the United States. Pete provides counseling from a biblical perspective. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and visit us at PeteThompson.org.